The city had a way of speaking to him before dawn, the low murmur of a million sleepers, the slick-tongued slap of the bay against pilings, the clatter of a shutter that didn't know its hinges were loose. Jaime stood atop the eastern ramparts of King's Landing with his golden hand on the crenel, and he listened. The air smelled of brine and tar and the first charcoal braziers catching in fishmongers' stalls. Somewhere far below, a cat sheared past a rat with a hiss, and the rat skittered under a door as if the world were on fire again. A memory not yet old enough to dull rose up in him. Burn them all, and he pushed it away not with force but with practice, the way a man learns to breathe past a broken rib. The city spoke like an animal in sleep, twitching through dreams, unaware of the dragon clouds massing beyond the bay. He had saved it once. He told himself that often because the other word, Kingslayer, had been thrown so long and so well that half the time it simply fit, like a boot that had molded itself to his foot. But he had saved it once. Down in the throne room, the hall blister-hot with summer and rage, Ares' nails like little yellow crescent moons in his palms, and the pyromancers grinning like children with pockets full of glass. He had stuck his sword through a king to stop the burning of a city. He had done it for every baker and fishwife and dung hauler and orphan that would never learn his name. He had done it and lived with the taste of iron in his mouth. He could do it again. The first sound of rowing found him and made no sense until a boat's shadow peeled off from the darker shadows under the piers, and a man climbed the stone-cut stairs with a limp. The torch the man carried guttered when he reached the top and raised it, revealing a face like an old apple left to wrinkle. A captain of the city watch, though the black cloak sat crooked on his shoulders and the badge was tarnished. "You're late," Jaime said. "You're early," the captain answered, breath white. "No one sleeps. Then no one will be startled when I start moving them." The captain passed the torch to a recruit. The flame danced on Jaime's gold fingers. It had been polished last night by a boy with quick hands who looked at it every fifth heartbeat when he thought no one was looking. The hand caught the light as if it were fire's friend. "My men will hold the posts we discussed," the captain said, shyness tucked into the casual tone. "It's half the gold cloaks. The other half answer to whoever feeds them," Jaime said. "I know. Qyburn has purses, but no loyalty. Cersei had loyalty once. It's the purses now." He turned to the black line of the bay where a pinprick burned far out like a star fallen into the water. A lantern on a mast. He imagined how many masts Daenerys had by now, how they cut through the sea with sails so pale the night made them ghost-white. He pictured the dragons, and he tried to keep them small in his mind. "It will be today," the captain said indirectly. "Our traders in the fish market say the rumor broke an hour ago. The small folk have it that she's on the far side of Dragonstone and finished lighting the world behind her." "Rumors never die of starvation," Jaime said. "Have you dealt with Haleen?" The captain's eyes flicked like minnows. He laughed at me until he learned whose name I'd brought. He showed us the vaults under the September, like a proud father showing someone the size of a babe's hands. "There are jars down there the color of old bile, and more under the guild hall of the alchemists, and more under—" "I know where the jars are." His mouth was dry. Haleen prattling on in his memory, the word vintage used for wildfire with a gourmand's delicacy. "You are to post men at the tunnel mouths and allow no chandler with a candle, no mouse with a firefly, no rat with a spark." "Aye. And if anyone tries you, even if it's a man in maester's chains or a woman wearing my sister's face, you kill them and ask after their name when you're done." The torch snapped. The captain swallowed. "Aye. Good man. One last thing. When you hear the bells, don't cheer. Don't march. Don't leave your posts. The bells aren't a victory. They're a promise I mean to keep." The captain left into the blueness before day. Jaime lingered. When the light came, it came with the color of old bruises first, then milk, then finally a wash of yellow that softened the rough humps of the city roofs into something almost gentle. King's Landing had never been gentle. Even the breezes were knives with just enough warmth not to cut. By the time he reached the Red Keep, the corridors had begun their morning argument. Servants squabbling over basins, a kettle that would not boil, two knights exchanging tidings louder than they needed to. A pair of small birds, the humankind, thin-legged with eyes like spilled ink, darted past him with baskets. One glanced back and saw him and vanished. He found her where she liked to stand lately, overlooking a courtyard where gardeners were replacing trampled herbs with new sprigs. Cersei wore a gown the color of wine that stains, and she smelled like an orchard in high summer. And she was beautiful in the way a cliff is beautiful to the ship that will not steer away. "You're awake," she said, and did not turn. "Or maybe you never sleep. I've forgotten if you ever slept, even when we were children. Mother used to complain you were up with the first lark." "We were never children," he said. "Speak for yourself." The silence between them went shaggy. He watched a young launderer in the yard try to wring out a sheet as long as an ox cart and get caught in it. The boy laughed to himself when he staggered, and that made something twist in Jaime he did not have a good word for. He said, "The dragons are close. If they are out there at all, they are close." "I asked you to bring me heads," Cersei said as if commenting on the weather. "Sisters' heads, uncles' heads, someone's. The city would feel better seeing heads on spikes. They like their art simple. You asked me for something else long ago. Protect the city, you said, when the mob was beating you like a rug." He allowed himself a small smile that hurt his lip. "I remember every word you ever threw at me. I just choose differently now." She turned. The years had carved their names in the corners of her eyes. Pride had gilded those names like a lover. "Do you now? A new Jaime for a new day. Does your new hand make you brave? Or just make you think so?" She reached without permission and ran the backs of her fingers over the gold, as if it were a cat she owned. "I've never liked that. It doesn't bleed, and it doesn't forgive." "It reminds me," he said. "Do you know what it's like, Cersei, to be haunted by the exact temperature of a room?" "I do. I remember how hot it was the day I killed him. I remember the taste of my own sweat. I remember thinking, if I can end this, I will live with the name they call me." He drew a breath through his nose. "You have jars under this city. Qyburn has men who stroke them like pets. If the girl with dragons comes, you mean to crack them open and let the old green praise you." She did not pretend. She was always worst when she believed herself most honest. "You were never happier than when you killed in my name." "I was never happy," he said, and the sting of it made him angrier than he should have been. "Listen to me. If she comes, we open the gates when the bells ring. We yield the city. We surrender before any torch can find the tunnels. We do it because there are bakers and fishwives and dung-haulers and orphans. We do it because the gods will not forgive slaughter done to prove a point." "The gods," she said softly, as if the syllables were ants she could burn by focusing the sun. "Which ones? The ones in their 7 pieces? The ones with a tree for a face? Or the blue-eyed ones who blow cold air across the wall? Find me a god that is not a man in a mask. I will drown him in wine." "Tommen is still a boy," he said, and it was wrong. There were too many kings in his mind these days. What he meant was the sense of boys at windows, boys with soft mouths and softer skins, boys who could be kept alive if the adults could for once stop needing them for theater. "There are children in this city. They don't deserve to die because you wish to die admired." "You think I wish to die," she said. "You think that's the size of me. I think you're not afraid of it when it lets you turn every eye toward you." Her gaze went bright and pure with fury. It made him love her, cruel and reflexive as biting his own tongue and tasting blood. "You, of all men, have no right to speak to me of fire. And you, of all women, should have learned something from it." When he left her, she did not call after him. It was in that wordlessness he knew she believed herself already victor of the day. He took a corridor that stank of onions and low wages and then a stair. He found the captain of the watch waiting where they'd agreed, and a half-circle of men with their badges upright and their mouths set. They were good men, not noble, possibly not brave. Good men in that they had wives who snored and sisters who could skin a rabbit and fathers who beat them when they deserved it and sometimes when they didn't. He trusted them more than he trusted most knights. "Positions," he said. "We take the pyromancers first." They went not with a trumpet but with a cough. Quietly, quickly, the little birds came out of the dark like the music you hear only once you've stepped into it. Sharp blades and little hands, whispering teeth. One of them cut a gold cloak at the knee and fled screaming at the sight of the blood, shocked at his own success. Two more were not so shocked. Jaime parried a knife with the golden hand and felt the jolt shiver up into his shoulder. He wanted to tell whoever had made the hand that it did its duty well enough, but makers of such things rarely needed thanks. He trapped a bird's wrist between gold and flesh long enough to twist the knife free and tossed it down the corridor. Qyburn's men finally came with cudgels. They were not fighters, just cruel in steady ash-gray ways. That made them dangerous. Men who enjoy pain waft sweet until you bleed on them. They found Haleen in his study cooing at a chart. The man leaped at the sight of white cloak and lion, then wrung his long fingers, then tried to push them off with questions about jurisdiction. Jaime let the captain discuss the finer points of jurisdiction by slamming Haleen's head into his desk. "You will not open a single jar without the king's leave," the captain said. "The king's leave, or my life is forfeit." Haleen's mouth puckered. "The queen, the king," Jaime said, and for an instant he thought the words might scald him. They did not. Nothing burns that is already scar. The jars under the September were a sea of wicked green. The smell found the thin places in the back of his nose and set up shop. The green men who served the guild murmured their prayers like frogs. A pyromancer tried to push past the captain and found his throat like a coat a second later. The man batted at it as if his own hands were everything else's fault. The captain did not smile. He only waited until the man dropped to his knees and went quiet. Then he stepped over the body like a farmer over a root. "No fires," he said again. "No light. No sparks." Jaime walked the tunnels, his fingers brushing damp stone. He knew the city from the outside, its street plan like a child's maze. He had realized too late he should have learned its underneath. He made his way along the route he knew Qyburn would choose if he wanted the best draft to carry flame where it shouldn't go. The old drains, the carved-out bits from when the A. Dals had first laid marble over marsh. He marked them with chalk. Behind him the men shuffled and muttered and went still again. In one chamber a jar sat cracked with green tears hardened, and the sight of it dried his mouth for the space of 5 breaths. They would hold, he told himself. They had held for years everywhere else a mad king had wanted them, which was nearly everywhere. The day rose fully while they caged the green. The city woke too fast and too loud. Jaime heard the bells of the September begin to peal a slow language, announcing a thing to the faithful with a tone that was too tired for jubilation. He stood in ankle-deep water in a tunnel and felt the sound land on the crown of his skull like a benediction he had not earned. Every bell in King's Landing would speak soon. He would make sure of it. Back in the Red Keep, Qyburn had barricaded himself in Cersei's solar with a dozen crossbows and 3 boys with pockets full of tacks. The first boy threw them at the floor with a grin so conspiratorial it broke Jaime's heart. Any child can be taught to think cruelty is mischief. Jaime sent the boys away with a story about a different game somewhere else. His voice had never sounded like a father's until that moment, and the novelty unsettled him. Qyburn watched with small, pleased eyes, as if he'd discovered a new fever. When the gold cloaks battered down the door at last, the man did not run. He folded his hands like a novice and asked, with politeness that had a worm inside it, whether they had a warrant. "From the king," Jaime said again. The repetition made it true. They took Qyburn to a cell that had held men better and worse and the same, and if the little birds gathered at the corridor mouth like smoke, they did not come inside. Cersei received him not as a sister receives a brother, but as a storm receives a tall tree. She stood with her hands on either side of a window as if bracing the city apart. He saw fatigue hiding behind her temples, shallow as a breath. He saw the way she'd contoured her mouth to look patient. He saw all the work she had put into the face she was about to wear in victory or ruin. "Your men are very busy," she said as the bells of the September found their full voice. "I hope you've remembered to feed them. They're like dogs. They piss where they're told if you throw them a bone. They'll piss where they must," he said. "I've removed Qyburn from your company. He belongs to no one's company but his own curiosities." She studied him. "Do you know what it felt like? The day they jeered me? I've never told anyone. It felt like falling into a very cold river and waking up where the river decided to spit me. My feet never found the bottom again. Every day since, I have climbed out by clawing at the mud. And you tell me to yield. You tell me to open our gates to the daughter of the man you murdered. I tell you to be larger than your pain. She laughed then, and it made a sound like glass necks broken under a boot. And who taught you that trick, Jaime? A tall lady with a long sword and clean eyes? I smell her on you like rain. She reminds me what is not ugly, he said simply. Then take your golden hand and hold her hand and ride north to die for snows and wolves. Leave my city. It is not your city. It is if I am on the throne and refuse to move. He took a step toward her. The bells rolled and chimed. The sound came through the stone like water moving under the skin of the world. If the bells ring now, he said, they will be for surrender. The bells will save a city, Cersei. Let them ring. She searched his face as if he were a cipher she had once read easily and now couldn't place. Do you love me? Yes, he said, because he would not be cowardly with his words. And I love this city more. Then you never loved me, she said, as if naming it made it truth. She moved so quick. She always had that violence in her body, the way a dancer has grace, and the knife she wanted was the one under the table beside the window. She had put it there for an enemy she could not yet name. Perhaps this very enemy. She reached for it, and his golden hand closed over her wrist. Metal does not bruise. It only dents the world around it. He held her like the city, and felt her pulse jumping under his gold. And with the other hand he took the blade and set it on the table between them. In the name of the king, he said softly, and the people of the city, and the oaths I swore when I put on this white cloak, I place you under arrest. No, she said, and at the same instant the door behind him opened and Sir Robert Strong stepped through like night entering a house. The mountain smelled of grave dirt and old rain and something too clean. Qyburn had scrubbed him of sin, which left only whatever is left when sin is taken away. Jaime backed. He hated backing away from a fight. He hated that his body was honest when his mind told lies about bravery. The bell song ran and vaulted. Gold cloaks came with hook chains and nets greased with tallow. The first net went around the mountain's head and the second tangled his arms. The third caught his legs, and the man simply walked forward dragging half a dozen men like children on a sled. Jaime drew no sword. The golden hand would hold no steel, and the other had cut enough kings for one life. He aimed for the place where neck met shoulder with a spear that had been leaning by the window like a piece of garnish. The point sank, and the mountain did not bleed enough to mean anything. Only the motion mattered. He flinched a fraction, the way the tide sometimes pauses before it turns. In that pause, the captain of the watch slid a chain through a ring bolted into the floor for dogs and took the weight. More men piled on, and the room filled with grunts and wet breath. Cersei did not cry out. She had never been one to waste noise. The mountain went down. The sound was more like a house timbers giving than a man falling. Chains snapped taut, nets cut. One of the youngest gold cloaks sobbed with the effort he spent on his end of a rope. When the mountain lay finally as if asleep with all his wrestling done, they bound him again, then again until he looked like a parcel. Jaime took Cersei by the elbow and found in himself a gentleness that made him ache. It doesn't have to be this way, he said. It always had to be this way, she murmured. Not to him but to the place where the window framed the city, as if the streets had been whispering the script since she was a girl and she had only been faithful to the lines. They took her down the long corridors. The first people who saw the procession gasped soundlessly and darted away as if their gasps were taxes owed. Somewhere down in the wards people poured out of doors to stand under the bell song, men, women, children, the very old, the very small, the ones who had boiled their breakfasts to a smear because they could not wait one more hour to eat. They looked up at the towers with their mouths open, waiting for whatever came next to name itself. What came next was Jaime in the throne room, the place where heat kept him company, standing on steps he'd once painted in a king. He had never wanted this step, never wanted any step that required an audience. He looked at the Iron Throne and saw everything it was, knives pretending to be a chair, He called for parchment and for the captain of the watch and for the herald who could still speak without swallowing silence. "Write," he ordered. "By the authority of the king, I, Ser Jaime of House Lannister, Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, declare the Red Keep and the City Watch under my protection. The bells are to ring the signal of surrender. Throw open the King's Gate. Throw open the Lion Gate. The Dragon Gate, too. Let them all be dragons for a day. The city yields. The herald's quill rattled." His lip quivered, but his voice did not when he read the words. The bells rose. They did not sound like victory. They sounded like what a man sighs when his fever breaks and he looks around at a world he is not sure he wants, but will inhabit anyway because it demands his body and his hunger and his hand. He heard the click and slide of bolts undone at the gates. He saw messengers run across the yard like pins dropped from a seamstress' mouth. He imagined the bridges lowered and the ditch not aflame and the dragons circling over a city that had told them yes. On the walls, men cut down scorpion strings so no one with restless fingers could take a chance. On the docks, fishermen threw ropes up to hands that had never held such thick twine. The ropes bit into palms and blood grew out of skin like wine, and no one let go. In the streets, someone began to pray, then someone else until it felt like a rumor that might one day become religion. She came from the sea, a line of black in a map of blue, then from the sky with a sound like very old leather pulled too fast across a table. The dragon's shadow knelt over the King's Gate and the wind of it was a shout. Jaime stood where he could be seen and where he could not be crushed accidentally. He held his empty right hand low at his side so the golden one would shine. Clan banners bowed. The dragon's head dipped, and a woman with hair the color of Ash's hope rode its neck, and the other beasts spiraled higher, guarding, tasting. She had a face built for resolving contradictions. Sorrow's weight with a child's calm, rage's slope with a mother's mouth. The men with her, unsullied with their spears straight as truth, Dothraki with their braids bristling like cats who have smelled lightning, halted in a discipline the city had never seen. The woman dismounted. She walked forward with a measuredness that made him think of midwives, of potters weighing clay. Tyrion was a half-step behind her, harried and fierce and wearing a care on his brow that Jaime recognized with the shock of seeing an old wound in a mirror. Their eyes met and did what all brothers' eyes do when a word will ruin more than it saves. He inclined his head. The dragon laid its head on the stones like a dog. Its breath was heat and iron and something like Cinnamon's ghost. The city cracked open an eye, unbelieving and very awake. "I know you," the woman said, and the words were not an accusation or a forgiveness but a catalog entry. "I have heard the names for you, the Kingslayer, the Oathbreaker." "I know you," Jaime said. "I have heard the names for you, the Breaker of Chains, the Unburnt." They let the sound of the bells sit between them, a crust of bread set on the table for sharing. She said, "Do you yield to me the city and the Red Keep?" "I yield them," he said, and did not add any of the things his pride wanted him to, because pride had emptied too many houses already. "There are no traps lit beneath. I have removed the man who would most gladly have lit them. There is a woman in a cell who will spit at your name and never swallow any of my words again." "Your sister," she said without surprise. Tyrion's face pulled at the corners. His eyes glistened as if he were trying not to blink too much. "My sister," he said. "Once, when the city was meant to be burned, I killed a king. Today, when the city might have been burned, I killed no one and took a queen's crown away with my hand. If you must have a name to throw at me, throw a new one. Make it fit." She studied him the way one studies a door that may be both locked and trapped. "You offer me not only the city's flesh but its bones," she said. "You offer me a mourning in which there is no ash." "I offer you that," he said. "I also offer you myself if that is price. I am not a young knight. I am not very clever. I am very stubborn about people who bake and fish and swear and break their backs at river steps." He glanced aside to find Tyrion, and found him wiping at his mouth as if it were stained only he could see. "Take me in chains if that makes it easier for everyone to believe in your mercy." She did not smile. She did not move. The wind walked past them, tugging at pennants. The dragon exhaled in a plume that curled at the edges like a lover's hair. Then she nodded once as if completing a calculation. "I take your city," she said. "I secure your pyromancers and their fires. I accept your surrender. You will not be my prisoner. Not today." She turned slightly and lifted her chin toward the balconies where faces peered like pears over a barrel edge. "Let it be known," she said, voice carrying in the way a mother's can without shouting, "that no one will die today for opening a gate." The city heard, and a sound rose that had nothing to do with bells. It did not sound like jubilation. It sounded tired and amazed. It sounded like the first breath a man takes after a fever leaves his lungs. Jaime felt something in his chest that had been bound to the iron bar relent. He would pay for it, he knew that. There is always a bill. He would pay in exile or humiliation or the kind of punishment the world hands out when a legend behaves differently than the song. He thought suddenly of Brienne's face when she spoke of vows. How clean the words looked in her mouth, how untired, and the thought startled him because it did not taste like longing but like rightness. They brought Cersei into the throne room after midday, when the dragon's shadow cooled the yard and made the children run and squeal under it as if it were a fountain. She walked as if the floor were a cliff and she alone had its friendship. The chains were only for show. She hated the show. She was also expert at it. When she stood before the Iron Throne and the woman from across the sea who took it with her eyes before she would take it with her body, she tilted her head and pursed her mouth in a way that had once made men beg to be instructed. "So," she said, "you got yourself another throne to sit beside. Perhaps you will like this one better. It bleeds its sitter, I hear." The Dragon Queen's lashes flicked. "I am told it draws blood," she said. "We will see if it can be made to stop." She lifted her chin at Jaime. "And see, too, that it will not be used to cow bakers and fishwives and dung haulers. I am very tired of kings and queens who play with the lives of people who cannot read their banners." Cersei spat on the stone and smiled when the spit slid into a crack. "You will tire of mercy. Everyone does. Men like my brother come to believe their little victories matter. Then something large comes along and eats them." "Something large came along," Jaime said. He waited for her to look at him. "It did not eat me." "You taste bad," she said. And there was the old wicked intimacy there, the one that made his bones remember nights in a keep that belonged to them. He did not look away because not looking away was the only sword he had left that could cut her. "Tell me, brother, does it hurt being noble? Does it itch? Do you scratch all night on your sheets and wake smelling of virtue and sweat?" "It hurts," he said truthfully, "but not as badly as I feared." Tyrion, when he came to Jaime later, spoke softly, as if they'd found themselves on a stage everyone else had left except the orchestra packing its cases. "She will not forgive you," he said. "She forgave me nothing when I killed Aerys," Jaime said. "She forgave me too much when I did worse for her. Perhaps this is the first thing she sees clearly." "She will not live," Tyrion said. "Not here, not under a roar that is not hers. The new queen will not have her murdered, not if I can help it. But there are ways to be killed without a blade. There are ways to be sent away from your power that feel like your lungs collapsing." "I know something of that," Jaime said. He found he had not stopped watching the yard to make sure the children were not under the dragon when it breathed. He would be watching things like that for the rest of his life. "I mean to leave." Tyrion lowered his eyelids to hide what always lived behind them. "To the north," he guessed. "There are walls there," Jaime said, "and things beyond them that breathe a colder kind of fire. There is a woman there who carries a vow like a sword. If I am to be anyone in the end but a story told badly by drunks, I should pick a cold place to earn my breath." "Will you come back?" Tyrion asked. "Cities find a way to survive," Jaime said, "even when men decide they are poems." Tyrion nodded once as if a book had closed. They embraced awkwardly, both of them bad at the choreography of love. When Jaime left King's Landing, it was with one pack, one cloak, one horse whose temperament matched the hour, willing and a little stubborn. At the King's Gate, the captain of the watch met him with a bag that clinked and wouldn't be refused, and eyes that didn't lift. "They'll sing about you," the captain said roughly. Let them sing about bakers, Jaime answered, and about bells. The bells did the fine work. He did not look back when he crossed the worst of the stink and the best of the light. He did not look back when the dragon ghosted along the parapets to watch him leave like a cat seeing a mouse grown too old to chase. The city did not speak to him as he left. It breathed the way a man breathes once he has outlived the fever. Twice he had saved it, once by making a room cool at last, once by making its bells mean something other than death. He kept both memories balanced in his palm, one metal and one flesh, and rode into the road that pulled north, the road that would not love him, the road that would at least be honest about bite and weather and the way the wind does not care who you were when you were warm. He was not a song. He was a man on a horse, with a hand that did not forgive, and that was enough to begin again. They told the story differently in every hall where snow gathered on the sill. In White Harbor, the tale began with a boat slipping out of the black under the yard of the Red Keep, and a man with a broken honor breathing through a rag that smelled of lamp oil. In Winterfell, it began underground with stone kings standing in their niches, and a boy carrying a lantern through fake dawn to listen at the mouths of dead men. In the Neck, they swore it began with frogs and a whisper across water. Each version, like a road in winter, had ruts in different places. But the truth was this: Ned Stark did not die on the steps before the September. He died a little that day, and the city stayed hungry. He did not. He woke in the dark under the fortress like a man who had fallen through ice and hit the bottom and found, inexplicably, that he could stand. When Varys came the first night, the eunuch smelled of ink and rosewater and fear. There are ships that forget who they were built to serve, Varys said. There are doors in every city that no one has locked for years because they forgot there was a key. If you can walk, my lord, we can find one of them. He walked. His body hurt in all the honest ways, the ribs bruised by a boot, the mouth cut by a word he had not wanted to say, the head thick with thirst that lived inside his bones. But his feet put one in front of the other, and his hands remembered how to catch themselves on corners, and by the time he tasted salt air, he was perfectly certain that he had made a mistake and it was too late to die for it. They took him to a fisher's boat the size of a kitchen, and a woman with gray hair pulled the oars while a boy counted in a language the city never bothered to learn. The walls fell behind like a mood that has lifted without explanation. When dawn split the sky into blue and gold and the sea into sheets torn by wind, he fell asleep with a coil of rope for a pillow, and in his dream he was young again and could hear his father breathing through a beard the size of a pelt. The father in his dream said nothing about honor. He said, "Because dreams are honest and cruel, go home." He went home by way of White Harbor. Lord Wyman looked like a man carved from suet and shrewdness, and his laughter had the texture of meat. "You smuggle Starks into my port, and you expect me to keep it quiet? You are mad, and I like it," he said when Ned came hobbling into a room that was too warm after too many cold nights. "You have daughters to save and wolves to wake. You have a city full of men who want to place your head back where it was, and another city full of men who keep their swords under the table. I cannot allow the Warden of the North to make war on an empty belly. It offends me. What do you want?" Ned said when the bread had warmed his mouth and the meat had steadied his eyes. "Justice," Lord Wyman said cheerfully. "And songs. Good songs. Not the ones they sing in Old Town where the wine makes their tongues too soft. We will give them to the grandchildren, and they will eat them with their porridge. Meanwhile, I want you to write a letter to Stannis Baratheon that will make him feel noble. The man is a whetstone with a mouth. He will not bend, which means the only things to do are to lean on him correctly or to avoid him entirely. Lean on him. He is the lawful king whether we like it or not, and liking things has never been a Stark specialty." Ned slept in a room with a window that gave him the kind of light he remembered from childhood. Winter sun through scraped frost. He wrote to Stannis because justice without letters is only a howl. He did not ask for mercy for himself. He offered the North such as it could be offered, and a name, Joffrey's, without legitimacy. The quill did not tremble in his hand when he wrote the truth about hair and bastards and books that had taught him what honor had not. He sent the letter on a fast ship whose captain swore more creatively than most prayer books. He did not expect an answer. When one came, it was in a hand like cut wood. We will make this right. Come to me if you can. Hold your north. Trust no fry. The last line looked like it had been written as an afterthought, but the quill had bitten harder there, as if the writer had pressed down to make the advice bruise. Trust no fry, Ned read aloud, and something in him grew bitter and strange for a moment, like an apple whose flesh had browned. He called the banners. He did it with ink and with men who could carry a shout up the coast and around the bends. He did not lift a horn in a courtyard and let it blow a pretty note. The North did not need poetry to wake. They came as they always had, through trees, along sheep tracks, over the ghost of roads the Undulls had promised and never finished. The Great John came roaring and drunk, and his laughter scared the hounds into the kitchen. Meage Mormont came on a horse that bit anything foolish enough to be near its mouth. She carried a hammer and wore a dress with stitches she had put in herself. Helman Tallheart brought a boy with eyes like winter sky and explained in a careful voice to anyone who would listen that most of what was happening could be prevented if someone would simply behave well. Even the Crannogmen sent moss-colored men to stand in corners and say very little. The banners looked like fog on a clear morning. Robb rode into the yard at White Harbor slim and too quick for the horse he sat. He swung down and embraced his father. There were tears, and they came the way a knife comes out of its sheath, quick and in a line. And then we're back where men like them kept tears. But a hand met a shoulder and a head tilted into the hollowness of a neck, and both of them breathed as if they had been waiting to do that since the first raven. "I thought you dead," Robb said. "I thought so too," Ned answered. They sp. Oak not as lord and lord, not as king and general, but as men who had shared a roof where the worst thing that could happen was a pig going lame. Robb told him of the Riverlands and the battles that had been won by quickness and bravado. Ned listened and said the things fathers say when their sons show them they are men. Yes, good, be better, aim for better. Robb bristled and then softened in a single breath. "What now?" he asked. "We strike at Tywin before he can turn and swallow us? We throw him a bone that is too large for him to chew. We go home," Ned said. Robb flinched. "Home. There is no battle we can win without first gathering what we are," Ned said. He drew a line on the map with his finger from White Harbor up the King's Road to Winterfell, then west, then south. "The Riverlands burn whether we ride today or a week hence. Let them burn less because we plan more. Winterfell is a place the South forgets. We will not. At Winterfell the wind smelled the way breath smells when you have been running and stopped, in, out, visible." Ned stood in the Godswood, and the heart tree regarded him like a witness tired of being called. He had loved that face since he was small, not because it was kind but because it was true, which had often felt like kindness. He knelt, not because the gods were watching but because it put him close enough to the earth to feel it speak. The words were the old ones. Keep, hold, remember. The ravens in the branches spoke the new ones. Blood, south soon. "I am here," he said into his scarf of breath. "It will be enough." The first revenge came not as a sword thrust but as a closing of a gate. Theon Greyjoy came back to Winterfell like a son coming home from an errand with his arms full of explanations. He smiled the way men smile who have rehearsed their faces. He laughed the way men laugh who know what happens if they do not. He had ships at Sea Dragon Point and a letter in his pouch from a father who mistook pride for a kindness. Ned had loved the boy because his own heart had its stupidities. He had given his children a brother because children need one another more than they need tidy politics. He met Theon in the Great Hall and embraced him, and he felt the guilty stiffness in the boy's body like a blade against his ribs. "You are well," Ned said. "I am alive," Theon said and tried to grin. "It's more than most men get to be." Ned nodded to the guards, and the doors swung like slow winter branches. Men who had known Theon in the yard, in the kennels, in the cold, surrounded him without their faces betraying they knew him at all. "I have letters," Theon said, and his voice lost a shaving of swagger. "Lord Balon. Balon Greyjoy is not lord in the heart of my hall," Ned said. He shook his head once, as one does when a fly will not leave a slice of meat. "Theon, look at me," Theon raised his eyes and could not keep them from sliding away. "I will not kill you," Ned said. "You have done me wrong and would do worse if I allowed it. But a boy who has slept under my roof will not die on my flagstones while I watch. You will stay. You will eat. You will sleep. You will not write. You will not whisper in corners. You will not walk the battlements after dark. If you try to run, I will have your legs broken and I will carry you to your bed and feed you like a child. In spring, if there is one, and if the world still means anything, we will see whether we can find a kind of forgiveness that tastes better than this." Theon opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. In the end he wept, and the sound was not a man's sound or a boy's sound, but the noise timber makes when it gives way in storm. They kept him, and he became a thorn no one pulled, because in winter thorns keep wolves away as well as hurt fingers. The second revenge came with ravens that flapped into the yard heavy and mean with cold. They brought word of frays moving like fleas over meat, Whitcross and the twins and little villages that most maps didn't bother with marked in ash. Robb wanted to ride with every horse that stood. He wanted to crash through the ford and blow a horn in Walder Frey's ear until the old man's head cracked like a pomegranate. Ned set a hand on his son's shoulder and felt the tightness there like a fist. "We do not give Freys a feast," he said. "We starve them. We send men to close their little roads and break their fences and take their sheep. We let the winter that belongs to us do the work pride longs to do. Pride makes a mess. Winter tidies it." He sent Meege and men he trusted to draw Frey blood slowly where it would do the most good. He sent the Crannogmen like fog into their marshland and had them pull down signposts and build them again wrong. He sent a hunter he had not thought about for 10 years to find where the Freys kept their grain, and he had the man piss in it and tell no one why. "This isn't war," the Great John complained. "This is humbling a neighbor with tricks." "Good," Ned said. "Humility is a good winter cloak." At Moat Cailin he stood on the broken stones and looked south where the King's Road ran like a vein. He could smell the south rising, horse, gold, bread, arrogance. He held Stannis' letter like a cold thing and wondered if the man were on the march, if the sea had given him back his men. "We make our stand here if we must," he said to Robb, who had stretched taller since they had left White Harbor and seemed to be getting used to how his limbs fit him. "We hold here until the world decides it is ready to be better." "Better," Robb said, as if testing how far that word might carry. "And Sansa?" It was a wound in him that never closed. Every hour it wept a little. In the dark he could sometimes hear the sound of it, as if wounds were like streams and you could know them by their water. "We will take her back when we can," he said. "She is a child," Robb said, fierce as a boy trying on a father. "Escote. They will hurt her because it is easy. That is what the South does." "We are the North," Ned said. "We will not behave like the South. We will be worse than they expect and better than they can imagine." It sounded like something his own father might have said and then regretted because it sounded like a proverb and life hates proverbs. He softened his voice. "We will take her back, not with a story to tell about how glorious we were, with her breathing and with her hands unbroken." They sent riders to Stannis at last. The reports came back the way everything came back in winter. Late, stiff, with frost around the edges. Stannis was marching on King's Landing with a sword no one could agree on. Some called it light. Some called it an insult to fire. He had men, not enough, and ships, more than enough to make a harbor fear him. The dragons were still rumor, not wind. The Lannisters had their kingling and their lions and their cages full of people no one had remembered to feed. Somewhere south of the Neck, men died in ditches with decent boots on their feet and good arguments in their mouths. "Will you go?" Robb asked Ned at the ford where cold water worried at horses' legs and made men swear under their breath. Ned looked at the south as if it were a distant field where someone else's children had been sent to look for a lost calf. "I will not go to King's Landing yet," he said. "I do not think honor belongs to one place at a time. It belongs to a way of behaving while you sit in a doorway and mend a strap." "Varys said you had no talent for lying," Robb said with an effort at lightness. It did not land. "You have talent for patience, then." "It's only a talent because the world hates it," Ned said. He put his hand on his son's head, and for a second Robb was small again, a boy with a stick for a sword and a dog bigger than his idea of himself. We will win a different way. We will win slowly, and we will win with our people intact. He did not count the dead. He did not walk away from the walls when the first snow came so light it could pass for ash if you'd never seen winter before. He listened to the ravens at night and learned to tell one man's handwriting by how his anger pinched the letters. He went to the crypts and spoke to Lyanna the way a man speaks to a person who will not answer. "I should have told the truth," he said to her stone hands. "I thought to protect your son, and it made music for dead men to dance to. Truth is a poor blanket, but it is warmer than lies." He put his hand on her stone fingers and felt the smoothness that had nothing to do with flesh. "I will do better." The war turned the way weather turns when it has done its worst and grown bored. The Freys found themselves hungry and biting at their own skins. Tywin turned to face Stannis at the city and found himself not fast enough for the kind of rage that walks out of a sea and asks only for correctness. The letters changed tone. Less strut, less promise, more caution, more asking. They spoke the word peace sometimes and did not vomit after. Ned wrote to lords he had never expected to write to and made bargains that would have embarrassed a younger man. He kept this one thing bright in him, the face of a girl who loved pretty things and had gone south into a beautiful lie. He kept bright the boy who had learned what a sword was by watching the light on its edge and thinking it was only light. When at last he marched, the north moved with him like a river that has remembered how to be a river after ice. They crossed the neck and stepped onto ground that had always felt like a salt-burned tongue to Ned, and they kept their discipline without his having to yell. The songs would later pretend there were drums and gleaming lines and speeches that made the hair rise on necks. There were none. There were men with hungry bellies, women disguised as boys because their husbands had died, dogs that would not be left and therefore became soldiers by default. There were carts. There were more arguments about where to piss than about how to kill. They went anyway. They took small keeps first, not because songs like it but because knights need to eat and angry men in leather need to sleep. They pried Lannister men from their beds like barnacles and let those who would run run. They hung Yanoslint because some men need to look at a body that deserves it. Otherwise the world grows too vague to bear. They wrote to Stannis every mile, "Here we are." They waited to hear from him, and when they did not, they still moved because waiting has a moment when it stops being patience and becomes fear. Outside the Twins, where the river went on speaking its wet language about logic and banks, Ned sat his horse and looked at the old stones and felt nothing ceremonial rise in him. "We will not feast," he said to Robb. "We will not enter and sing. We will not give the old man the pleasure he craves of making us bow in his hall. We will dam his river upstream and make his bastards wade through muck to find their supper." "That's not war," the great Jon said again. "It's what we are doing," Ned said. He had learned to accept men's boredom with his tactics as a weather pattern. Came and went. He stayed the same. They cut the lines of supply. They spoke with men who had married Fry daughters and asked them how it had been. And many of those men laughed and said they would dinner on salt and water rather than another night of banquet with those faces peering. They did not storm. The phrase capitulated with a sound like an old door finally admitting it had been swelling too long and wet. Walder came out and offered his hand and a story about misunderstanding. Ned took the hand and declined the story. A misunderstanding is when one man asks the other to pass the salt and the second man stands and throws the table at him, he said. "You have done more than that. Forget it. Do the correct tea." Hing now. They crossed the river anyway. In a meadow that should have been a festival, they found a band of Lannister men who had taken a lordling hostage once and laughed about it on their horses until laughter became a way of being. Ned put them to the sword because some men can live only under a sky that they think has no weather. He did not enjoy it. He did not make anyone sing first. He held the lordling, no more than a boy with a throat too small for the swallow he was managing, and spoke to him until his breath stopped stuttering. When the raven finally found them with Stannis' mark and a new tone in the hard lines, it said this: "The city is held, the false king undone. There is a woman with dragons who means to be better, and we will test her. Bring the North's breath to the wall because winter has made itself honest at last. The words made the hairs along Ned's hands lift, as if a static had moved through the camp. He raised his eyes to the gray horizon and thought of a boy in a black cloak with a sword that had learned cold the hard way. He had sent that boy to be better than most men. It was time to go and keep that promise from becoming poetry. Robb looked south as if someone had just told him a joke and neglected to include the punchline. "And our revenge?" he asked. "The men who laughed while we bled. The men who made us bow. The men who would have killed you if luck had not put a mask in your hand. The men whose names—" "Our revenge," Ned said, "is that we are not them. Our revenge is that we still go home to roofs we saved and to children whose spoons we've kept full. Our revenge is that when we stand on the wall and look north, we will know we did not spend ourselves on pretties, and so we have strength left to spend on what matters." Robb nodded, slow and angry and young, and also, in that instant, exactly equal to what he was asked to carry. "We go north," he said. "We make the winter ours." Ned slept once more in his own bed at Winterfell. He dreamed of a woman in blue with a crown made of winterberries who kissed his brow and promised him that none of this would be wasted. Not even the tears, not even the mistakes, not even the days he had been wrong and quiet. He woke to the sound of wind, looking for a way in, and found Sansa sitting on a chest in the corner, worn and beautiful and older in the eyes the way sorrow quickens the clock. She had come with a small guard, moving through back roads and kindnesses and the sort of luck that builds itself when men decide to do a decent thing without being told. They looked at one another the way a bow looks at an arrow. He crossed the room in a step and gathered her, and for a while he was only a man with his child in his arms. "I thought you dead," she said into his shoulder. "I thought I was," he said. "I was wrong." She drew back and her mouth tried to decide whether it could bear a smile. "Will we be all right?" she asked. "We will be all right," he said, not because songs needed it, but because she did. He was not sure. That was the truth the gods take for a tithe. But he had chosen a way to be in the world, and he would walk it until the snow drowned him. He would stand at the wall beside men who had names like stones and faces like weather, and he would put his blade in the places winter hates to find steel. From the battlements, when they rode north, the people of Winterfell looked small and obstinate. They had seen too much to cheer. They only lifted their hands and set their mouths like men about to go into a storm with shovels. Ned put his hand up and did not wave, because a wave felt like a promise he was not permitted to make, and because he did not want to take his eyes off the road that would pull them into the only fight that mattered. The wolf banners rippled and snapped. The wind smelled like iron and pine and the idea of ice. Ned breathed and felt the ache in his ribs and the steadiness in his hand and the quiet in his heart that comes when a man has made a shape of himself and decided to keep it. He had not died when some said he had. He would die sometime else in a place honest enough to deserve him. Until then, he would do the thing he had learned late and the hard way. He would choose the living over the song. He would gather the north and spend them correctly. He would be revenged by being decent. In that way, his footsteps marked the snow so clearly that, in the years to come, boys and girls would place their feet in those prints and find that they, too, could walk where the wind had blown all the words away.